Hello, my name is Liz and I grew up in a cult. Part of growing up in a cult meant that I journaled a lot because journaling was the one place where I could absolutely share all of my feelings, and my mom was too busy being a housewife and trying to raise all of my siblings and I to actually care what I was writing about. So unlike some kids, I got away with journaling whatever I wanted, and they became pretty intense. I find my journals kind of cathartic to see the growth over the years from a really overdramatic preteen to a very sensitive, high-strung, anxious, ADHD-driven teenager to a strung-out college student who is way obsessed with politics to the person I am today who's still overdramatic, and you don't want to read my journal entries after I go on a date. But anyway, that aside, I thought, why don't we do a religious brain dump and share some of my life journey from intensely religious teenager who is begging for God's approval to the person I am today. Along the way, we're gonna have excerpts from my journals and from my Facebook posts because they are a gem. Now, I didn't get Facebook until I was 20, but I was definitely journaling long before I was 20. So we're gonna start with some journals, we're gonna intermix some Facebook posts, and then we're going to end with my final journal entry that documents my religious deconstruction. Just realized I don't have a mic on, and that is unacceptable.
July 20th, 2011. What am I trying to fulfill as a Christian, as a young woman? Whose expectations do I hold myself to? Is it just my own or my parents'? Perhaps my friends? How often do I ask Jesus what he expects of me? Really, whose opinion do I think matters the most? I know in my head where I should base my acts, but what is my heart following? When does pride and the fear of man begin to build up? Where do the weeds begin to scoot themselves among the true wheat? Am I watching for these stumbling blocks, or the eyes of approval around me? When I trip, am I quick to see why God allowed it, what sin I was heading towards? Or is it the opposite? Do I glance around and see where my friends are headed and decide to ignore the roadblocks? Then do I go a step further and block out my shouting conscience? When that fails, what earplugs do I start using? Music, books, activities. When do I actually read the Bible for contentment, for reproof, for doctrine, instruction, and not just to check it off a list? You are 16, Elizabeth. You can chill down. That's something that's honestly sad to me, is as a young preteen and into a teen, honestly until I was in college, I thought anything that I enjoyed could be taken away from me at any moment because it meant that I wasn't loving God enough, because I was finding enjoyment in things that were not inherently God himself, like worshiping with Christians, going to church, witnessing. If I was finding joy in playing the piano or reading a book instead of reading the Bible and memorizing scripture, then there was something wrong with me. And honestly, that's so heartbreaking to me because my understanding of joy is so different now. And even when I went to college and started deconstructing my faith, and when I firmly believed in Jesus and who he was and actually was evangelical, even then, as a mid-20 something, I realized that God made joy, and I didn't need to hate my own joy in order to make God happy. But at 17 years old, I was terrified of enjoying something too much because God would take it from me. I was terrified that God would make my friends sick to punish me, that God would kill my dog to punish me. And it's just heartbreaking to me that I thought God would take away my relationships and the things that brought me day-to-day joy because I didn't think they were holy enough for God. When God, in fact, made those relationships and made the things around me for his child, me, to be happy. The way I expected God to hate me is really rather sad. Anyway. Nice 2011 journal. That's all we're gonna read from 2011 because it's too sad to keep reading. But also, isn't this the cutest journal? It's too bad the words inside are super depressing and make me sad for teenage me. I think to some degrees you can tell I definitely had ADHD because I was struggling so much with my own, habits that were hard to break and make because of ADHD. Okay. This is from This is honestly one of my favorite journals because I think it's so cute. It says, things happen for a reason, just believe. And honestly, it's like so cute. So cute. With the words inside, we're happier. We're gonna call this piece Church and State, Elizabeth. June 13th, 2014. I have been so encouraged to really get into the Word and draw parallels to our world's problems. What kind of views do I have at the current situations we find our country in? Do I see the finger of God influencing the nations? Also, it is very important how I come to these decisions and how it relates to policy. Patriot Academy it's still run by Rick Grain and David Barton. David Barton has Wall Builders. He's a fake historian who makes up theories about the Founding Fathers and their Christianity and then finds bits and pieces from quotes that are not taken in context, and then he uses them to manipulate historical events. Rick Green trains young people to run for political office. He invested in Lauren Boebert, for example, as one person that he has personally worked with. So that gives you the kind of idea of the people I was hanging out with, because I was at a Rick Green event, and I wrote this on June 11th, so the day before. And I was in Boise, Idaho at a Patriot Academy event. It is past midnight in Texas, almost 3 here in Idaho. It is just so wonderful to be involved with Patriot Academy with these amazing new patriots, and at the same instance learning so many principles to apply to my own life. 3 ways Satan destroys generations: abortion, addiction, and apathy. That was the 2014 journal, and at first I thought this was the year I went to college. I went to college in 2015, so this is a whole year before I went to college. This is me in college. My life is one devoted to public service. Sometimes I think it is not mine to live, as though what I am doing isn't for me. Every step for my country, the future generations, my family, my God, my friends. What gain is it for me? Very little. Sacrifice all of personal comforts to see public service in action. Who am I? George Washington. And then the next page I literally write a Lord of the Rings quote, so I was interesting. And I actually wrote the date. Good for me. September 17th, 2016. I crave intimacy desperately. Someone to know me, accept me, and dream with me. To bring me down to earth, crash my expectations, and patch them back up again. Who stays with me emotionally and doesn't allow me to shut them out. Who makes me weep and then brings me tissues. Someone I can be angry with and yet cravenly love. A contradictions of emotions that completes me. Sometimes these desires overwhelm me. I feel submerged in a depth of loneliness and unfulfillment. I flippantly think that I want a boyfriend, but that is not all. No, it's so much deeper. I want an emotional, physical partner. This is a hard desire, hard to admit, to grasp, and to surrender. I guess when I finally realized how much my heart craves this, I was in wonder. Awed that my broken life could dream of being with someone. It is so difficult to let go, to let my grip loose and trust God. Really trust without caveats. God help me, forgive me for my desire, forgive my doubt and disobedience, mold my desires after you, keep my heart fixed on you, far above my broken dreams. Elizabeth, your dreams of intimacy are not broken. It is not wrong to want a partner. And yet, I thought it was, because of brainwashing. This is the page that I wanted to read in the journal because I think it really starts to highlight my fracturing relationship with my beliefs and my family. While some may be relieved to see family over Thanksgiving, I am not. Family is one thing, expectations and disappointment another. I enjoy the emotional liberty of school without even realizing it. Being on my own is incredibly trying. Yes, I can be overwhelmed and stressed, but it is momentary. With family, it is a constant task, a burden I feel I bear almost completely alone. This makes me doubt God more than anything. If he truly cared, would he not touch my parents' heart? Could he not give me a different family? Why must I suffer through manipulation and humiliation? And I don't understand why am I alone. Of all my siblings, I am the least attached to opinion. I think I have a resolute sense of character, a surety of focus. But when I'm with family, all that purpose dissipates. I am once again a little girl, completely at the mercy of parental whim. I used to care the least. Presents, trinkets, affection meant nothing. Now I'm the only one who even tries to pacify them, to even make an attempt at unity. Is it wasted effort? Should I abandon the care and seek satisfaction elsewhere? I hate to consider to defeat, to think parental love is a closed avenue. But perhaps that will always be my fate. I fear love will forever be lost to me. I don't know why God has burdened me with such a heavy weight. It afflicts my soul and destroys my very foundation. Oh my gosh. Whew. Did not read that page completely before I started reading it on camera. Little college sophomore me deserved so much better than this. Anyone who has to deal with family who does not love unconditionally deserves better. And comparing my childhood self with reactive attachment disorder, when I could not express or feel emotion, comparing it to that, saying I used to care the least, presents, trinkets of affection meant nothing, wishing I could be like that in the wistfulness of which I used to say, oh, I didn't used to care, but now I do, which that is what abusive people do. They break you down and then they start to build you back up again, and they withdraw that affection and love until you perform the way they want you to, and when you don't perform as they desire, then you are crushed because you've spent your entire life working to achieve affection, and then when it's not there anymore, it doesn't feel right. And at this point, I think God has put me in this family, put me as this child in this abusive, manipulative household because he wants me to suffer, because he is teaching me something, because I deserve this kind of family. And I'm begging for help. I'm begging for answers. And honestly, there is not an answer for this because the kind of religion I was taught did not provide an answer for this kind of pain. At least an answer that would help people, actually help them, instead of hurting them further. All right, turning the pages a few more. Okay, I'm trying to look for the date. I definitely did not write dates very much in this book. It's really, really frustrating. Whew. Okay, so at one time, there was this guy that I thought I was going to marry because he asked me my opinions on politics. And then he turned out to be dating someone else. And this girl came into my dorm room because she knew there had been like this talk between this guy and I the previous year, and she wanted to make sure that I knew that she was dating him. So we're just calling her Bethany. Bethany woke me up last night to tell me that Jay and her are talking about dating. I could have been irritated, but I know why she thought she should tell me. Anyway, I know nothing was happening with our friendship. I'm talking about the friendship with this guy. So it doesn't really bother me. Not really. God has given me peace and showed me how I really turned away from my true love for God to imagine a future that could not satisfy. It was selfish of me to demand Jay's attention just because we both like to talk politics, and foolish for me to pin a hope and dream on a man instead of my eternal creator. So that's the end of a chapter. It was a hard, well-deserved lesson. Also, I hate daylight savings time. So apparently daylight saving time ended as I wrote that. And you know what, Liz? I agree with you. Daylight savings time ending is rough. Anyway, so I write that, and I don't know how much time passed between me writing that and literally, I taped a note card that someone wrote to me where they said, I always am amazed at how much you know about literature and politics. So apparently they're like, it was like a prayer thing, and they were like, you are a survivor, but more than that, a conqueror. Keep God first. Oh, this was different messages from different people in my prayer group. Someone just wrote carrots, which is funny. I appreciate your love for Hamilton, the musical. Anyway, so I write that card, which is full of nice little things that people are saying about me, and then I paste that in my journal, and then I write this. This has been one of the hardest days I've ever dealt with. It is though a mountain of bad news has fallen onto my path. Are you really asking me to cross this, God? You really truly want me to shoulder this load? My flesh is so weak, I am sinking, I am drowning. Save me, my Savior. I reach out for my rock, my fortress, my God, and Jesus alone is my trust. My flesh lies to me, it screams defeat, but you, O Lord, are the speaker of hope. Battle for me, breathe life into my darkness, build again my broken spirit. I was having a rough day. No telling what was going on. I continued to write in this journal off and on this is 2016, that was when I wrote that. 2017, I go to China, and I apparently didn't take my journal because there's very few entries from China, but there's entries about China, and the summer I spent working in Philadelphia after I got from China, so it was just a whirlwind summer. Then I come back to college and I journal this. It's a poem. Take courage, faith, your God will undertake to guide you safe, no need to fear. He is still near, his child he'll never forsake. Take courage, faith, your God is good, you are always understood. His word breathes life in you, open wide, his spirit you'll receive. Let him work in you, take courage, faith. Also, my first name, I don't know if anybody knows this, on my YouTube channel, my first name is Faith, so that was literally a message to me because my first name was Faith. Is Faith still, but I didn't legally change my name until I was 20, so I didn't go by Faith that often, so very interesting. All right, before I read the last entry in that journal, I thought I would read some of the Facebook posts that I was making over the years. This is October 12th, 2016. I'm really struggling with the entanglement of politics and religion and how that affects my conscience. I recall reading about Christians in Nazi Germany having to choose whether they want to be a Christian first or a German first. I wondered as a preteen, will I ever have to choose between being an American or a Christian first? Today I realize the choice is not about being an American or a Christian, it is about choosing to obey conscience or exalting my traditional American rights. If the time comes for me to choose my rights or my conscience, conscience will come first. God will always protect the unborn more than the Supreme Court can even try. It is our job to act in faith and follow. Human wisdom demands that the GOP needs to control the court. Christ's example shows that God works most when human wisdom is defeated. I was ready to preach, I will say that. I also wrote a blog post at the end of the school year, and sadly the blog is no longer available. I deleted the blog in 2020 because I was done with blogging. And the funny thing is, I'm thinking about blogging again just to like record travel posts and different things like that, but I was burnt out on my blog. Now I have a Squarespace website. Squarespace, please sponsor me someday. And I'm planning on like starting a little blog over there, but it's mainly selfishly for internet SEO sake. But my blog in college was a book blog, but it also started out as a personal blog where I dumped every emotion in the world, kind of like my journals, but tailored for people to read, so it wasn't that vulnerable. But anyway, this is what I wrote in my blog. And it was reshared to Facebook, which is how I found it, because somebody quoted my blog and shared this to their Facebook. Otherwise, I can't find the blog because I deleted it and there's no copy of it online, which is totally fine with me. We don't need to see what I was writing. It was really cringe. When I dreamed of being an adult, my dad read me the story of Jeremiah. Jeremiah was a prophet with a really hard job, warning God's people they were about to go into exile. Jeremiah faced some tough opposition and went to God to complain. My dad liked to quote God's reply, "You're complaining about the infantry now. What are you going to do when the cavalry attacks?" I used to hear that and think, but adults have jobs and money. Life can't be that hard. Not so fast. I've enjoyed a lot of stuff that comes with being an adult. Getting to vote, making a shopping list, owning a MacBook. But the challenges are real. Joining a church, navigating relationships, paying bills. College has just been a small taste of what life brings. While it's nerve-wracking to think I'm going to be dealing with this the rest of my life, one thing is sure, it doesn't matter whether it feels like infantry or cavalry, God is still in control. Oh my gosh, I sound like a little parrot, because I was parroting. And I thought I was so insightful. I was not. Okay, I do agree with this post that I wrote December 21st, 2016. Was this a commentary on the election? Maybe. I thought I was being cheeky. I kind of was. For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. Reading this last night and impressed with the grief of this verse. At the moment I thought, this is the saddest verse in the Bible. God's people chose to segregate, to shame another people. Segregation and pride isn't new nor acceptable to Jesus, for he must needs go through Samaria. Jesus went out of the way to reach the marginalized. Following Christ means rejecting the cultural norms and going out of our way to reach those abandoned by the world. I should have just said abandoned by the current president because I was super upset at his election. But I framed it in Christian language because I was a Christian girl. Let's see if there's any other glorious posts. Oh my gosh, I remember writing this. I cannot believe I posted this to Facebook. Imagine Elizabeth 2016 again. I don't tend to side with one denomination or another. Results of attending a non-denominational home church growing up. But I do think that true Christians in this country need to unite around something, and it's not a political party, person, or interest group. I love reading the Barmen Declaration, written by the confessing Christians in 1934, as opposed to other facets of Lutheranism in Germany, who styled themselves the, quote, Christians. It is fatal when believers insert a political party into their title. Amen, Elizabeth. Anyway, let's see what else I had to say. Today, as believers, we need to emphasize our rejection of politics for the eternal. I was literally preaching this so loud on Facebook, and no one was listening to me. And they wonder why I left the church. These are literally excerpts from the Barmen Declaration, which I really appreciate. So I'm going to read it here because the people in Germany in 1934 who stood up to a certain dictator were absolutely right, and I'm proud of them for posting this. But it's just funny to me that I copy and pasted this to Facebook as though it was going to change anyone's mind in December of 2016. We reject the false doctrine that there could be areas of our life in which we would not belong to Jesus Christ, but to other lords, areas in which we would not need justification and sanctification through Jesus. We reject the false doctrine that the church could have permission to hand over its message and its order to whatever itself might wish, or the prevailing ideological and political conviction of the day. We reject the false doctrine that beyond its special commission, the state should and become the sole and total order of human life and fulfill the vocation of the church. We reject the false doctrine that beyond its special commission, the church should and could take on the nature, task, and dignity that belong to the state and becomes an organ of the state. Oh my goodness. I had not read that in a while, and it rings so true today. So I was writing all that on Facebook, and I write this in my journal, January 2017. I write this in January of 2018. I came out in February of 2018. So I write this in January of 2018. I came out as gay to a friend in February, that's what I mean. In January 2018, I write this, New year, new me. Well, not really a new me, but a more honest, free me. This is the only place I can truly be honest with myself. I can barely talk to anyone about these tremendous thoughts and feelings. How do I even start? Well, I am not an evangelical. I will just say that I don't believe in traditional church stuff, in the entire inerrancy of the Bible, or the historical interpretation of Jesus. I should say the traditional way of reading biblical narratives. I'm weary of a church where white people own God, where straight white men dictate whose story is told. I am tired of politics mixed with gospel greed, where evangelizing turns people, and that's what I wrote. Literally, that's all. That was, and then I have a page, I have one more page that I wrote in this journal when my grandmother died, and that is the end of the journal, because I could not find a way forward, and I didn't pick up my journal again until after I graduated college, because there was one thing I could not write in my journal because I didn't want to actively write it because I could barely admit it to anyone, was that I was gay. And so it was very hard for me to journal without acknowledging that huge part of my identity. And I thought it wouldn't make sense if I didn't write about it, but I was afraid to write about it because what if something happened to me and a friend that my family found my journals and read that, it would change their opinion of me if I was no longer alive, And I wasn't ready to tell them that I was gay, so I wasn't writing about it in my journals. Anyway, that was some religious brain rot, if you ask anyone. I will say this video was heavily inspired by Catholic Out series on her journals through capitalism and academia. I thought that was a very fun series. I've never journaled about academia because I was a solidly ADHD student who could not do homework to save her life. But that is all. Thanks for watching. If you want more excerpts from my journal, let me know in the comments, because there is 8 whole journals to choose from, and I might share more excerpts on Patreon. So if you haven't checked out my Patreon, please go check it out. Lots of fun topics over there, exclusives. You get to join my close friends on Instagram, and more that I haven't figured out yet, so you can help me figure it out. And thanks for watching. I will see all of y'all later. See ya.
We're sorry. You have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service.